Hello everyone, my name is Zeotrex, and today we're taking a look at Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the newest the newest Spider-Man show. We follow Peter Parker on his freshman year of high school as he struggles through the growing pains of becoming Spider-Man. Meanwhile, he works with Norman Osborn to improve his Spider-Man skills, and is also struggling in his personal life. So, this show was announced. How long ago? How long ago was this show announced? Was it the 2019 panel? I think it was like the 2019 panel, maybe the Secret Wars announcement panel. It was announced during Comic Con, I remember. It was announced during a lot of animated projects being announced, and when it was kind of still yeah, we don't know when we're gonna see it and whatnot. I was like, yeah, I'm excited for it. New Spider-Man show, and then just when we actually started seeing how it was, I had no fucking interest in it. It looked stupid. It looked dumb. It looked quite annoying. Soulless thing ever from what we just heard. Animation looked horrendous, but look, whoever was in charge of marketing this show, get fired. Transformers 1 situation. The show started off as a prequel to the MCU Spider-Man, to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Then it became, I think it became a what if show, like what if MCU Spider-Man, and then I think it just became its own thing. And it had quite the rocky development. I think it was supposed to be 2D at one point and then turn 3D. Again, I wasn't really excited for the show. It's up there with spectacular, y'all. um, it's a great show. I loved it. I loved it a lot. I had some issues. I had some personal things with it, just kind of what I want out of a Spider-Man show, but this show was great. Um it's a unique and fresh take on Spider-Man that still respects the core of who he is. It still respects the basics that you need for a Spider-Man story. They change some things around. They kind of change the origin of him a bit. But yeah, for example, the cast of characters, it's not Gwen or MJ or actually no, yeah, it is Harry, or Flash or Liz or your usual band of Spider-Man characters, but we actually have some unique people such as Nico, from the Runaways. That's a character you don't really expect to be in a Spider-Man show. Uh, strange choice, but I ended up loving the character at the end, so why not? Lonnie Lincoln as well. Again, strange to see because um, Tombstone was a major part of the show. He's a pretty big part, but I definitely liked the arc in his character and what they did with him. His girlfriend Pearl, who I don't know if she's from the comics or not, and then of course Harry Osborn, who I liked quite a bit. I liked the characters, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But let's talk about my least favorite part of the show, or some of the parts. Just kind of get some of the negatives out of the way, because I want to talk a lot about what I did like about the show. The animation, it's a bit cheap. It can look fine at some parts. It eventually got to a point where it was a lot more it was a lot more bearable, and eventually just became oh, whatever. I didn't really care that much about it. It looked great in the final episode. So, it was one of those things where it looked cheap in some parts, so some parts can look great. Um I imagine it's a budget thing. I really imagine it was a budget thing. They're trying to go for that comic book style that Spider-Verse did. And while I do like the concept of it, I don't think they really had the budget to fully commit to it. It went for a much more brighter color palette, so it was more so something like the Steve Ditko or Ramita, kind of those earlier Spider-Man show comics, kind of go for that using the aesthetics of those, which I do appreciate. But I don't think it really had the budget to make it look the best. Um, but yeah, so that's just kind of my thing with it, was that the budget of the show I don't really think was the highest. And here's my theory about it. This show, I imagine 3D animation to an extent is a bit cheaper than 2D animation, which is how I would have wanted the show was to be a sort of X-Men 97 2D animated show. But from what I know of it, I imagine making a 3D animated show would have been a bit cheaper due to the process of it, like controlling the models, controlling like programming the models and kind of rendering the scenes. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this animation, but um 2D animation that's frame by frame, um most of the time there's like rigged animation and stuff. But I imagine it was just cheaper to go this route, and I imagine they just wanted to get this show out. I say that because let's look at the lineup this year. We have Wonder Man, we have Ironheart, we have Daredevil, we have Fantastic Four, we have Thunderbolts. No, not that doesn't count. I think that's just kind of falling in. We have a lot of projects coming out this year that were announced quite a bit ago, and now it's coming out this year. So, like I said in my MCU video, 2025 is really just the year where it's like, okay, you know what? Let's just get all this stuff out. We announced so much, let's get it out this year, and then we can focus on working on other things, which you know makes me worried about the quality, but I can understand. Another issue that I have with this show, it's not a big issue, but there's some MCU. Waiter. There's some MCU in my Spider-Man show, and I like MCU Spidey. I do like the MCU Spider-Man. It's my least favorite trilogy. I love No Way Home though, but there were a lot of elements in those that I didn't like, such as the change to Aunt May, how they handled MJ, just handling a lot of things. And I think this did a better job on changing Peter's origin better than no the MCU trilogy, because when I think about that, that feels a lot less intentional, you know? My main issue with Homecoming was that it felt like a sequel to a Spider-Man movie we just didn't get. But it's okay. It's whatever. Um, but yeah, there were some elements that were carried over here, such as Aunt May's design, or Peter not really having a suit for a long time in the show. There was also quite a few MCU references, so it's kind of like a what if show. Like, what if Peter was approached by Norman instead of Tony? Norman obviously being the Tony stand-in and giving him an internship and all that, which I think it's fine. It's not distracting, but it is noticeable that this was supposed to be MCU Spidey. Yeah. But other than that, I genuinely did enjoy a lot of the show. It does a great job of its character. The characters are truly the highlight of this show. Again, I love Nico. She's Peter's best friend here, and I love how she's not really a love interest for him either. She's just his best friend who helps him. And I really liked that. Harry, I also really liked as well. I love the relationship between Harry and Peter. Harry knowing that Spider-Man is Peter, and kind of what they did with him, kind of diving into the fact that he's a rich kid and how being a rich kid isn't always the best, and how you might feel a bit lonely, and how Peter does mean a lot to him and all of that. But like, I was apprehensive about the fact we wouldn't be getting characters like MJ or Liz or Flash or Gwen. We'll talk about that later. um but again, I like Nico and Peter's relationship in this show quite a lot, because I don't have any knowledge of her, but I think they set her up a lot with like her magic, and I'll talk about spoilers later. Lonnie, again, I was surprised with. I'm surprised that they gave Tombstone a major role. He was a big bad and spectacular, but he was more so like Kingpin in that show, because they were trying to make that was they Lonnie Tombstone in that show was the Kingpin stand-in, because they couldn't get Kingpin. But he's not really someone that you give like a major spotlight like this. And I think what they do with his arc is great. So he joins this gang because his brother joined it, and he wanted to make sure that his family was safe, and they get involved with this gang called the Scorpions, which I wonder who's the leader of that is. But yeah, that's how that goes. And Norman's let's talk about Norman Osborn. He's sort of the antagonist of this show. I'm pretty sure there's another word for it, like Doutragus or whatever. Um, he offers Peter an internship at Oscorp in order to like use Spider-Man for his own testing. The relationship between the two is sort of the best way I could describe it, uncomfortable. And part of that is just because of we know that Norman's the Green Goblin. We know he's gonna backstab Peter some way, somehow. But he's a really manipulative of Peter playing with his feelings and whatnot, and sort of playing with the audience. Like, there's some times where I was like, man, they do have a good relationship, and then I gotta snap myself and remember this guy's the bad guy. This is the Green Goblin he's talking to, and they set him up, right? Um, Peter has to look up to Norman here. He doesn't really have a father figure in his life because Uncle Ben is gone. And they mention Uncle Ben. He's not a big part, but unlike the MCU, they actually mention the fact that Uncle Ben is gone and how it's taken a toll on him. Peter seems lost without Uncle Ben in this show. So Norman kind of preys upon that lack of leadership and that lack of guidance, and it's manipulative. Let's also get this out of the way. I'll talk a bit more about the a lot of this later, but Norman's now black in this show. I didn't really care too much about. I didn't really care about that. I think it makes sense. The waves and all that. The waves look better on a black Norman. Um, I'm just saying. I would have liked if Giancarlo voiced him. He just looks like when he talk. It's not that big of a deal. But when I imagine him opening his mouth, I'm imagining Peter Parker. Ah, fuck, I can't do his voice. I imagine Giancarlo's voice coming out of it. He has a really unique voice, and I do want to see a version of Norman played by him eventually. Um, but I was fine with the voice that Norman had here. It fit him. It's gonna be disheartening when later down the line we do see Peter and Green Goblin fight. Another aspect I want to touch upon are the suits. The homemade suit is fine. I do actually like that design now that I think about it. The Oscorp suit, I wish it was an original suit, honestly. It's the Future Foundation suit that he gets from the Fantastic Four, and another issue I have is how modern Spider-Man have to like earn their suits. That's something that kind of bothers me a bit. That's something that kind of bothers me a bit. Um is how they have to earn their suits, and I also don't like it when someone other than Peter makes the suit. It just kind of feels like you're taking away what makes that version of Spider. Again, I think it's that MCU leftovers. Um, Either way, there's nothing I can do to change it. And the show also dives into some pretty heavy topics and themes, and mainly one scene where Lonnie is racially profiled by the police. That was genuinely insane to see. Not insane, but kind of surprising. It's like, oh damn, because the marketing for this show, there were so many things. I thought Peter would have been a streamer because people thought that they marketed him as that, kind of having that like we're trying to be hip, but we don't know how modern things work and whatnot. So it kind of gave off that vibe that it was like deuces, Peter out. Like the way it marketed itself seemed so fucking annoying. And it's the same issue as Transformers 1, where good you have a great project that is ruined by horrible marketing, making it seem like a generic dumb kids thing when really it isn't. Um there was great emotional moments too. There was the scene where Peter just got his ass kicked by Scorpion. Norman's telling him like what he did wrong, and he just goes to Aunt May, and Aunt May comforts him. They're both lost without Uncle Ben. They don't know what to do. And another aspect I wish they talked would have touched upon more about Peter is kind of like how he's like struggling financially. Which, you know what, that actually just came to my mind right now. There's a lot of Spider-Man stories where they're struggling financially, and so Peter has to be like, all right, do I stop the Rhino, or do I buy Aunt May's medicine? And while those, okay, for the context of this Aunt May being a much younger one compared to the older Aunt May we're used to, I do wish the show touched more upon the fact that Peter struggles financially. They struggle financially, and how Peter always wants to support his aunt, whereas here it wasn't really touched upon that well. And that's kind of, I think that really is just how much Spider-Man media I'm used to. Always touching upon that fact. So for this show to do something like new and different and not follow the norm that is Spider-Man, it comes off as a bit weird, but eventually if it's good enough, you just sort of accept it because nothing is going to stay the same as long as it's still respectful to the cores. Let's talk like for example, the Absolute series of DC Comics. So far, I've been so far mainly keeping up with Absolute Superman. I gotta catch up on Absolute Batman and Wonder Woman, and probably the other Absolutes. Loving that line so far. But let's talk about Absolute Batman because I'm the Batman guy here. Absolute Batman does something really unique with Bruce's character. He is broke. He still has his mom, and Alfred is an assassin, and a lot of his rogues gallery have been friends that he's known. And I think that is a great way to take a spin on him. Because, okay, they still don't have Batman kill, for example, but they do have him be a lot more violent. He has no issue with, like, cutting your hands off. Bit hard to get used to, but I still feel as if in a way that is respectful to who Batman is. You're taking these characters and putting them in new and unique situations while still respecting the core and what makes these guys the guys. Ultimate Spider-Man, the new one, new run by Hickman, so fucking good, by the way, dude. Please read the new Ultimate Spider-Man. So I'm about to spoil it a bit. The new Ultimate Spider-Man has Peter as an adult. Uncle Ben is alive. It's Aunt May who died, but he has a family, and he is friends with the Green Goblin, which I imagine later down the line he's gonna break, and that's gonna kind of turn into like a brother rivalry thing. You know how like Megatron and Optimus and Transformers One. So I imagine in that show, I imagine they what was I saying? The It's different enough. You know, Peter isn't a scrawny kid. He doesn't have Aunt May. He has Uncle Ben, but it still respects the morals and core of who Spider-Man is, and is still respectful. Meanwhile, Zeb Wells, on the other hand, 6'1" fucking 6, like 616 Spider-Man, just makes him a complete cuck loser. Haha, my name is Paul. I'm banging your wife. Get him up, get him up. Are they done with that run? Are they fucking done with that run? I'm fucking sick of modern Spider-Man. That's another thing. But let's talk about some of the cameos that showed up. Nothing like spoilery, but like let's talk about it. So Doctor Strange is the whole catalyst about the whole thing. Peter gets bitten gets bitten by a spider in the middle of this symbiote monster fight. It's actually really interesting how they switch up his origin. I'll talk about more of that in spoilers. I love that a lot. It's a lot more complicated than I would prefer, but I think it's clever enough to where it works. Daredevil also shows up as well. He has a fight scene with Peter and talking about like, I know you want to do good, and I definitely, I love his suit. By the way, I'm excited. I'm excited for Daredevil: Born Again. I need to sit down and watch the Netflix show, which is now a Disney Plus show. I'm excited for that. Iron Man shows up as well. I like these smaller cameos because it makes it feel like an alive world that does have the Avengers. And again, there's a lot of MCU references like the Sokovia Accords and Civil War, but they're not distracting. But it sort of just reminds you, yeah, this is supposed to be like an MCU show. All right, now let's talk about the sort of controversy with this show. Controversy. A lot of changes to characters. The wokeness of it. Yeah, that's right. I'm complaining again. Uh, So let me down my bottle of alcohol, bitch about Captain America Brave New World, not take to my girlfriend because I'm a dumbass, and look, by definition of whatever the hell that word means now, this show is woke. That is just the best way I could describe it. The show is indeed woke. Carla Connors is her name now. Not Curtis Connors, Carla Connors. Now, to be honest here, that did feel a bit strange to me, but more so on like a, why make like a change like that? But in the end, I ended up liking her. I'm curious to see if she will become Lizard. Lonnie being race swapped, I didn't care about either. I mean, he's gonna turn gray later. Why do I bring this up though? The voice actor for Spider-Man, I think his name is Hudson Thames or whatever, was worried that the show was going to be annoying and woke. Now look, I agree on that first thing. I wasn't worried that the show was going to be annoying and all that. But he outed himself as one of those grifters who bitch about woke shit. And let me tell you, pal, every superhero is woke. It came free with the concept of fighting social injustices. Spider-Man is an incredibly woke hero by what he stands by and like what Spider-Man is. Spider-Man now is not even just Peter Parker. I mean, back then, Spider Man was like, yeah, Peter Parker. But Spider Man now is a name that multiple people have. He's not just Peter Parker. He's Miles Morales. He's Hobie Brown. He's Miguel O'Hara. Peter Porker. Peter Parked Car. A Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's multiple. It's a mantle now. This argument is stupid because let's look at the two sides. One, you're outing yourself for being one of those annoying grifters. Two, you're you were like he followed up saying that like yeah I'm glad it wasn't. You're kind of wrong. Again, okay, again, Lonnie Connors and Norman are all Norman and Harry are all black now, despite the fact that they were white characters in the comics. Nico is either bisexual or just straight up lesbian. The show deals with racial profiling. Lonnie is racially profiled. And dog, what the fuck are you on about? Again, Spider-Man is a hero who has been woke for quite some time now. I mean, he's always been woke. Anyone can wear the mask, anyone can be Spider-Man. And it's just really weird of me. Yeah, let's fire this guy and get Yuri Lowenthal to replace him. Not Josh Keaton. I'll talk about why Josh Keaton later. But whatever. Look, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It's a decent show. It has. It's not flawless, it's my own personal wants out of a Spider-Man show, but it does a great job with the story. And by the way, hold on. Let's talk about this release schedule real quick. What a weird way to release episodes. 3 episodes at a time. This has 10 episodes, yet the show ended in like 4 or 5 weeks. Made it a bit hard to binge and catch up on, but whatever. It's probably not to interfere with Daredevil's schedule, which you know what, just have them running at the same time. Who cares? Um, but yeah, the show handles its characters extremely well. The relationships and dynamics between everyone is great. It has a great story and is possibly one of the best Spider-Man shows since Spectacular, which is my favorite Spider-Man show. It's a top 3 Spider-Man show. It gets an A minus. Now let's just talk about some spoilers real quick. Just want to talk about some of the setups at the end and something that got revealed today that I definitely want to talk about. So the final battle, it looks great, and let me get off topic. Wait, no, I already did. By the way, episode 7 looked awful. It looked so choppy, and I thought it was my computer because I just got off Rivals, which, by the way, I finally got fucking working. Um, Rivals was I got off Rivals, which is a pretty demanding game. So I thought it was just my computer messing up on me. No, man, that's just how the animation in that episode looked strange. But the symbiote shows. So we find out that Doctor Strange from the first episode is actually from the last episode. The symbiote shows up from the portal that Norman built using his interns and all that, and that he's been testing with Spider-Man's blood on spiders. Now, one of those spiders gets loose, gets into the time portal that Doctor Strange is in, and bites Peter Parker in the past. It's a bit weird to think about how like like how that could have happened in the first place if he, I don't know, it was a bit strange, huh? It's always a strange thing to think about. Um, it's a cool twist on the origin. I did like it. Now, this actually does bring up a pretty interesting theory that I want to talk about. Doctor Strange mentions that that wasn't supposed to happen. What do we know? Like, judging from what we know of the Spider Verse, Miguel's coming for your ass. I don't think they're gonna really do. I don't think they're really gonna have Miguel show up and attack him. I think they're gonna be too busy with Beyond the Spider Verse. If that ever comes out, come on, Shamik, get your shit together. If Beyond ever fucking comes out, yeah. But shit, what was I saying? I definitely do think that's a pretty interesting theory that Miguel might go after this Peter because he technically is an anomaly, I feel like Nemo, an anomaly, which is what Miles was. You know, he wasn't supposed to be bitten by that spider. It could just be a thing that he was always destined to become Spider-Man no matter what. But I definitely do like the idea that this Peter is an anomaly and that Miguel might be going for him. That leaves the door open for later. And I think it is more likely because of another cameo that shows up. But yeah, so that symbiote creature got a piece of him cut off and Norman collected it. Definitely a Venom setup. Speaking of which, let me grab this. Hey, look at this. I got normal Venom. Funko had this weird issue where Venom just wouldn't they just wouldn't make normal Venom. But yeah, I have normal Venom. Let me put him right next to Spidey. That's so cool. I love how big he is. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that we're gonna get Venom in a later season. If I had to guess, it's gonna be Harry. Judging, but it depends. Harry, Harry Osborn definitely seems the most likely, just because of like how Norman has it and all that. Kind of basing it off of what I know of Spider-Man 2. Which I need to get on PC. Who messages me? Uh, um, yeah. So Spider-Man, I definitely think this is Venom setup. Harry might be Venom. It depends though, because Harry is kind of now separated from Osborn, because he starts up his own company because Oscorp kind of is now a tainted name. So Harry might be a bit more separate from his father because of this. So if I had to take a guess, I think Eddie, if they want to do Eddie Brock as him, I think he might be working at Oscorp now. Or okay, this is just a weird thing. Amadeus Cho becoming Venom. He stays with Oscorp. And while I do think they're more likely to set up like whatever Hulk he is, by the way, he was also supposed to be in Brave New World. That would have been interesting. You know, interesting, but I'm glad it was cut out because um yeah, because of uh just the whole Hulk thing. Just watch that review. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by my friend here messaging me. But I definitely think that the most likely solution is that Eddie Brock is a either reporter who interviews Oscorp and possibly sets up the Daily Bugle side of things, or he's someone who works at Oscorp and he gets a hold of the symbiote and becomes Venom. I would love to see Venom. I fucking love Venom. He's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. It just all depends. It all depends on how it's handled. I don't know if I definitely think it's Venom setup. Peter probably does get a hold of it though. I want if they do this, I want Black Suit Spider-Man before Venom. Don't do what the Sony movies did. But you know, yeah. So Harry, let's kind of go back to that Harry Oscorp thing. I definitely like how it's called the Web. So Harry, Nico, and Peter start up their own company and invite a lot of people. Um, Max Dillon and Ned Leeds are on the board that he has, and I wouldn't put it past them that this is set up for Electro and Hobgoblin. You know, I think um I think Electro is more likely than Hobgoblin at the moment. I think they would want to focus more on the Green Goblin. Although Spider-Man has done Hobgoblin before Green Goblin, that was more of a legal thing where they couldn't use Green Goblin at first. It's weird. Um, let's talk about some of the big things, all right? Oh, wait, hold on. So one of the interns turns out to be Finesse. Her name's Jean. She's Finesse, who was working with Daredevil to get intel. Not too familiar with her. I think her dad is like Taskmaster or something. So I wonder if we'll see him. All right, let's get into some big things. So Strange and Peter meet and talk about the future and how Spider-Man could be ready for anything. Now Strange goes back to wherever he came from and just, Watcher. Watcher was just right there. And I fucking love that. I love that they're doing that now. Just having Watcher show up in the sky. It is such a cool thing. It's one of my favorite things, just having a character casually in there. I mean, it's such an eerie thing, too. That there's like this higher being always watching. They've done it a few times. They did it in X-Men 97 and they did it in I Am Groot. Um, where Watcher is just there. And I'm not too sure what it means, but I think it means that something bad is about to happen. Could just be a cameo. I'm not too sure if it's setting anything up, but hey, it's cool to see. And it also connects it back to the Miguel theory, somehow, because Spider Verse is connected to the MCU because we have seen Donald Glover. Um, we saw Donald Glover's Spider Man there, and also, fuck, it gets deep. We saw Toby and Andrew scenes, and those are technically connected to the MCU. Spot saw Mrs. Chen, so it's all just one giant web interconnected. It's fucking insane. Um, here's the fun one though. Aunt May goes to a prison to talk to someone. We find out that it's Richard Parker, Peter Parker's dad, so he's alive in this universe. Kind of gave me some older Ultimate Spider-Man thoughts during that Clone Saga, in which not Reed, Reed Richards was Peter's dad. That'd be insane. Richard Parker was the alive, but it was like a clone. I kind of forgot the context of it. It's how Aunt May found out Peter was Spider-Man. It was like it was like issue 100. I think it was right before Ultimatum. Um, But yeah, and he's voiced by Josh Keaton. It's so cool to see that Josh Keaton is still working with Spider-Man. I'm excited for season 2. Now let's talk about the thing that just got shown off today. Gwen Stacy! Let me go get her. Please don't fall. She has a stand and I've already broken. So, let's talk about my girl, Gwen Stacy. I'm a bit mixed on it. I like the design. I like the design for Gwen. However, she's going to be Spider-Gwen in season 2. I don't really like that. I trust them. I'm just gonna wait and see, let them cook. But personally, I don't like it because I think Peter needs more time as Spider-Man as himself. He just became Spider-Man, and for Spider-Gwen to already show up, yeah. Her design kind of implies that she might be working for Green Goblin. So it's kind of like what if Peter was fully manipulated by Norman, which I do like that idea, showing like what happened if he was working for him. I hope the relationship between Peter and Gwen though is really nice. I would love to see MJ also show up, but yeah, season 3 got greenlit as well, and I'm excited to see where the show goes. I was worried. I was really worried about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, but I'm not anymore. I'm excited. Spider-Man right now is just in a weird spot. He's having a great comic run in the new Ultimate series. His six run is all over the place. Speaking of fucking Gwen, let's talk about that weird ass decision to bring Gwen back to life as Gwenpool. The character who has kind of like a pretty funny thing about the fact that she's neither Gwen Stacy or Deadpool. Let's just erase all of that by making Gwen Stacy dead Gwenpool. Oh my god, Marvel! They're trying to. I guess they're trying to do like a fucking Bucky Barnes or Jason Todd situation. That doesn't work with Gwen Stacy though. It kind of ruins a lot about her. Whatever. And the whole movie side of things is just a complete mess. The Spider Sony universe is probably dead. Craven, for the time being. Spider Verse is fucking in the air because we don't know what Shamik Moore is doing. Haley might be uncomfortable to walk into the same booth as Shamik because he's always going after married women. Spider-Man 4 has worrying news. Is it multiverse? Is it going to take place on Battle World, or is it going to be a street level Spider-Man movie? And it seems to be leaning a lot more towards multiverse. They're wanting to recapture the same energy with Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's just you're learning the wrong lessons from these movies. It's just sad that we're living through such a confusing time for arguably one of the most popular superheroes of all time, the face of Marvel, and one of the big three. Anyways, um, that's it. Next review might be another movie I saw recently. I gotta get back to that script. I'll keep it as a surprise and kind of just up in the air. Like, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I enjoyed doing that MCU video, and I do want to do one for like the DCU because there's been some stuff I want to say. And until then, don't mess with the Amazing Spider-Man. Marvel Rivals is awesome.